नमामि नारायणपादपङ्कजम् करोमि नारायणपूजनं सदा वदामि नारायणनामनिर्मलम् स्मरामि नारायणतत्त्वमव्ययम्। This ninth chapter had these two verses 4 and 5, which are quite puzzling to especially novices, those who do not have as yet a good grasp of the Vedanta outlook. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtina. I pervade this entire creation, says Sri Krishna, and he says, Matstani sarva bhutani. All life forms are in me, but I am not in them. Nachaham teshu avastitaha. They are in me, but I am not in them. We deliberated upon this last time. The second part, I am not in them, shows Sri Krishna's or the Supreme Reality's unique nature, that it doesn't get stuck with anything, attached with anything. It doesn't get, as though tied, tied down to anything. It remains ever detached. As Adi Shankara said, asansargi. Sansarga is where two things come together. A is in B, B is in A, and it's difficult to even separate A and B. Whereas Brahma there is no question of separating, for Brahma never gets attached to anything. Sri Krishna says he is that supreme Brahma, and though all are in him, he is not in them. Another way of appreciating this statement is when Sri Krishna says he is not in living beings, all that he means is when the living beings go through birth, old age, death, etc., nothing happens to him. In the fifth verse also, that asansargitva, being unattached, having no relation at all to all these living beings who are in him, that principle is elaborated. Nacha matstani bhuta. This seems to be even a greater contradiction. Seems to be, but it is not. Living beings are not in me at all. Who said all living beings are in me, but I am not in them? And now who is saying all beings or no being is in me? Prem Sri Krishna. For if anybody imagines that living beings being separate, apart from Brahma, have their own existence, then that's not acceptable, because the Advaita principle, there are no two real. Even as 1,000 people pass in front of a tall mirror, everybody pauses and looks at their own image and moves on. Not a single person, not a single man or woman sticks to the mirror. In fact, not even for a moment, the mirror experiences the weight of people who stand before it and look at their own reflection. Just as the mirror reflects them, and it seems somebody is in the mirror, on the mirror, Actually, there is nobody. Nacha matstani bhutani. Pashyame yoga maishwaram. Look at this yoga. Here, yoga means a great glory. Aishwaram, Ishvara Sambandhi. It's related to Sri Krishna being the supreme ruler of the cosmos. And then he winds up this rather deep philosophical treatment with Bhuta Bhrit. In one sense, I support all living beings. Nacha Bhutastaha, but I am in no way attached to them or stuck with them. And Mama Atma, my inner nature, makes possible countless living beings to come up. Mama Atma Bhuta Bhavanaha. Adi Shankaracharya says, Nachamatstani Bhutani, Brahma Adini, the four-faced Brahma, who is one of the extraordinary Jivatmas, elevated to that position which is like an office held, and that Chaturmukha Brahma all the way down to a little stump of a tree or even other forms, they actually are not in me. Because if there is something in me, then there are two, something in me and me myself. The truth is, I alone am, and the apparent multitude of living beings is from the erroneous perception in which you and I might be presently caught. Therefore, we need to say something about it. But if we rise above the spiritual ignorance, above avidya, we rise above adhyasa, then there is only Brahma. Everyone is Brahma, everything is Brahma, nothing second. Ekam eva advitiyam. Pashyame yogam yuktim ghatanam. Yoga is yukti. What is yukti? It's making things happen. Brahma is one without a second, but it makes possible countless names and forms to appear upon it, play their game, and vanish. Pashyame yogam aishwaram, ishwarasya imam yogam. This yoga, this unbelievable capacity to make things happen belongs to Ishvara. Therefore, it is Aishwaram Yogam. Atmanaha Yathatmyam. Yatha Atma iti Yatatma Tasya Bhavaha Yathatmyam. The way something exactly is. Yatha means the way someone is. Yatha, Tatha. And Yatha Atma Bhagavataha Ishwarasya Tad Yathatmyam. तथा च श्रुतिः असंसर्गित्वात् असंगतां दर्शयति. This Brahma being ever unattached to all living beings, all names and forms. Where did you get this? Has any Upanishad talked about it? Shankaracharya says, of course, in a very important Upanishad, namely the Brahadaranyaka Upanishad from Shukla Yajurveda. Yajnavalkya faces a large number of scholars in the court of King Janaka, and over there, some of them get up, stand up, and ask questions. And in the ninth question, where the eighth questioner, because Gargi appears twice, therefore there are 8 questioners constituting 9 sections with questions asked by them and Yajnavalkya answering. So the last one, an unfortunate story, there is this Vidagdha Shakalya, who was quite impertinent, a bit arrogant and undisciplined. He also asked some questions, and without even understanding what he is asking, he goes overboard. When Yajnavalkya sees that this scholar is asking with certain amount of evil motives, just to tease, just to disturb, just to unsettle the person in front, he goes on asking, he is not truly qualified. And therefore, I called it unfortunate because towards the end of this episode, Yajnavalkya says, if you again ask a question, if you speak more, your head will fall. Murdate vipatishyati. And Vidagdha Shakalya, as there is a saying, Vinashakale viparita buddhihi, does not even take that warning seriously, continues to say something, ask something, comment on something, and it is said, Vidagdha Shakalya's head literally falls on the earth. He gets beheaded by his own karma. And what is more, if you see the words, it is said when the head falls down, Parimoshinaha astin astini apajannuhu anyam anyat manyamana anyan manyamana. Parimoshinaha means thieves. His head falls and thieves take away that head. It's a puzzling statement. Actually, a good interpretation of this is don't take the head physically falling off and thieves coming from nowhere and picking up that head. It is actually reflective of what has happened to a number of so-called scholars of Sanatana Dharma. They go overboard, they read something of the West, something of the East, something here, something there. They are so confused. Many times they think they are scholars, but they actually do not know certain essential components of the Vedanta philosophy. Posing as Vedanta scholars, many a time they do injustice. And even as with their oratorical skills or number of pages they have written, number of books they have written, the number of international conferences that they have attended and so on, certain vested interests, certain forces in this world which have a lot of money take them away. And then lured by that money, tempted by that glamour, that glitter, these so-called scholars actually serve those people with money and they care not for the pure form of spiritual teachings. They leave their roots, they are swayed away. So when they actually fall for certain temptations, that is, their head falling down, and the thieves taking away their head actually means many vested interests in their own country or in many developed countries just enslave them. Their head is taken away. Anyway, before that happens, that very sad episode of a apparently quite a learned Vedanta or Vedic scholar meeting with his death, meeting with his end, Yajnavalkya very patiently answers his questions. Only when Vidagdha Shakalya goes truly overboard, asks some impertinent question, asks a question where there was a tone of disrespect. Yajnavalkya has no ego, but that doesn't mean he will tolerate anything. Yajnavalkya not taking it personally, but seeing it as an affront, as an insult to the true Vedantic tradition itself, rebuts it. So before that happens, in his patient replying, as I put it, Yajnavalkya says in the third chapter of Brahadaranyaka, in the ninth Brahmana, 26th mantra, Yajnavalkya has this very famous line. It says, Sa esha neti neti atma agrahyaha nahi grihyate ashiryaha nahi shiryate asangaha nahi sajyate asito na vyatate na rishyati etani ashtau ayatanani ashtau lokaha, and it goes. The most famous line is Sa esha neti neti. Do not imagine that you can, with your intellect, grasp the Brahman, bringing it within the boundaries of intellectual capacity. There is the higher level, having lifted, having taken your intellect to great heights, there comes a point where you just drop intellectual activity and a certain deeper intelligence in you. You have certain intelligence which is above mind and intellect. The pure intelligence, it knows. Neti neti is letting go of verbose activity. Sa esha, this Atma, neti neti iti Atma, agrahyaha or agrihyaha, cannot be held. It doesn't decay. Then comes the portion which Shankaracharya quotes in his commentary on this fifth verse, asangaha nahi sajyate. Asango nahi sajyate iti asangatam darshayati. Idam cha ascharyam. In this way, while making everything possible, Brahma remains unattached. This is ascharyam. It makes you say, charyam. How wonderful. When you say, in English too, sometimes they use the expression, oh, I had an aha moment. When something very much impressed this person, he had an aha moment. Sanskrit it is ascharyam. Ascharyam anyat pashya bhuta bhrit asangaha api though unattached bhutani vibharti. Brahma supports bharanam karoti nacha bhutastaha yatoktena nyayena darshitatvat देहादि संघातम तस्मिन् अहंकारम अध्यारोप्य लोक बुद्धिम अनुसरन् व्यपदिशति मम आत्मा इति. So, though Brahma alone is loka buddhim anusaran. In this world, the world itself being part of the Adhyaropa, in this world there are countless people who stick to, who cling to the idea of high and low, of plurality, of many things happening, lot of things happening. This world is full of events, full of news. They think like that. All right, loka buddhim anusaran vepadishati. If you think so, then let me tell you, all these to which you give reality are held by me. Mama atma bhuta bhavana. न पुनः आत्मनः आत्मा अन्यः इति लोकवत् अजान. So for heaven's sake, do not imagine Sri Krishna also accepts that there are many atmas. Atmanaha anyaha atma. Other than this atma, there is that atma, then there is a third atma, there is one liberated atma, another is bound atma. No, those are all during certain thought development, those may be said. But actually, Brahma is Atma. This Atma alone is from Samyak Darshana point of view. From the point of view of right seeing, there are no two Atmas. Therefore, na ajanan. Sri Shankaracharya comments that Sri Krishna doesn't say it not knowing the oneness of everything. Knowing the oneness, knowing that the one alone is, he comes down a few steps and says to students, yes, so all these living beings are supported by me. I make them come up and so on. Like children sometimes play a certain game and they bring a empty plate to you and say, I am serving some idlis to you. Please taste them. You look at it, there are no idlis, but still joining them in their game, in their play, you take the plate and pretend to be eating some idlis and say, very delicious, so well made, wonderful, and so on. Not really taking idlis to be true. न पुनः आत्मनः आत्मान्यः इति लोकवत् अजानन् तथा भूतभावनः भूतानि भावयति उत्पादयति वर्धयति इति वा भूतभावनः. So bhavana can mean bringing something to existence or making something grow further, get stronger. Bhavayati means number one, utpadayati. Utpadayati is to bring into existence what was not before. And vardhayati is there was something already, you strengthen it, you make it grow. In this way, verses 4 and 5 are solid Vedanta. Right understanding of these two can take us very close to total freedom. Then do neti neti. Neti will happen. In utmost clarity, negation just takes place. Seeing alone remains. You know who you are without uttering a single word. Now, connecting us to the sixth verse, Bhagavan Bhashyakara says, Yathoktena shlokadvayena uktam artham drishtantena upapadayan aha. What was said in the verses 4 and 5, uktam artham, whatever meaning was said already, conveyed, drishtantena, with an example, with an illustration, giving a very appropriate comparison. Sri Krishna says, Yathakashastito nityam vayuh sarvatra go mahan तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानि iti upadharaya. There is space, akasha, and seated in or existing in space, akashe stitaha, akasha stitaha, vayuhu. And this vayu, this air, moves and reaches everywhere. Sarvatra gaha. By sandhi, it becomes sarvatra go mahan. Some student mistook it to be English. Sarvatra go. So go. You have the English verb go, go and come and so on. So sarvatra go. It goes everywhere. It's an interesting coincidence that it looks like the English word go, but it is gam gacchati. Sarvatra gacchati iti sarvatra gaha, and by sandhi, gaha becomes go. It is not the English go. Sarvatra gacchati mahan vayuhu mahan bhavati. In this way, sarvani bhutani matstani ityupadara. Please know all living beings, bacteria, viruses, and huge animals, very learned women and men, all are in me. Just as all air going from north to south, west to east, and so on, is in space, is in akasha. Yatha loke akasha stita, akashe stita. This is what we call Saptami Tatpurusha. Akashe Stitaha becomes Akasha Stitaha. Saptami Vibhakti. Akashe is seventh case. It's a kind of Tatpurusha. Tatpurusha Samasa. आकाशे स्थितः आकाशे स्थितः नित्यं सदा वायुः सर्वत्र गच्छति इति सर्वत्रगः महान् परिमाणतः by size, by its pervasiveness, तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि आकाशवत् सर्वगते मयि असंश्लेषेण एव. Samshlesha is getting stuck. Samshlesha is A and B coming together and oh, now you can't separate them. Or if you separate them, there can be some damage. Something breaks, something sticks. 80% comes, but 20% still remains over there. So a lot of adhesives, a lot of sticky things are like that. Some oil falls upon a piece of cloth. Immediately you act and do something and take the oil out, but a little remains on the cloth or paper and so on. That is called samshlesha. Shlishyati means to embrace. A husband once was in a very philosophical mood and he said to his wife, you know, in life we should have an open mind. And sometimes when we remember our greatest blunders in life, we must accept them also. We must embrace our greatest blunders in life, he said, in the sense of accepting. But she took it literally. Immediately she hugged him. Because he had said, accept, hug, embrace. He used the word embrace. Embrace your blunders in life. You are my greatest blunder, marrying you. So she hugged him. So, shlesha, ashlesha, all mean hugging. Alingana, that means sticking. A and B come together. But Brahman never really gets attached. Wise people go to such dizzy heights of clarity as well as nishtha. They are Brahmanishta. Even when they handle money, even when they relate to people, women or men, even when they sit on great chairs, even when they attach wonderful designations to them, to themselves, or the society gives them designation. The society calls somebody Jagat Guru, Rashtrapati, this, that, no matter what they are doing. They have reached a certain unbelievable maturity, even when they are on the chair, even when they are in the embrace of a man or a woman, even when they are sitting amidst millions of dollars, even when they are traveling all over the world, business class or whatever, and another time they are poor, nobody is with them, they have become unpopular, the society calls them sinners or failures. Either way, thanks to their supreme inner awakening, nothing happens to them actually. They do not get stuck with anything. Asamshleshena eva stithani. Therefore, higher Vedanta and many teachings of very, very great masters, Maharshi Ramana, Jiddu Krishnamurti, Nisargadatta Maharaj, and lot of statements of someone like Osho are mind-blowing, for they have that insight. And anybody who internalizes those insights, anybody who actually has so much clarity and so much of abidance, then they are free. Therefore, one of the meanings of the word brahmacharya or brahmachari or brahmacharini for that matter is Brahmavat charati iti brahmachari. They live as though they are Brahman. It's not about control of senses or control of mind or some particular emotion. It's nothing about holding back or letting go. That is preliminary or that is middle level philosophy. In high level philosophy, whether they have withdrawn themselves or are engaging in some activity, some pleasure, some enjoyment, etc. Yogarato va, bhogarato va, sangarato va, sangavihinaha, yasya brahmani ramate chittam, nandati, nandati, nandatyeva. They move on and next moment they are not into either the fall or the rise, either the infamy or enviable fame and name. They are not into it. Asamshleshena eva stitani. Brahmavat charati. They partake of the nature of Brahma. Then they are brahmachari. Evam upadharaya. Evam vijani. Please know in this way. Connecting it further, Shankaracharya says, Evam vayuhu akasha iva mayi stitani sarvabhutani stiti kale. So when we say, like, like air which is everywhere in space, living beings are seen to be everywhere in the Brahman, we must hasten to add. They are seen in Brahman during certain period of time that is called sthiti. Before that, they weren't in Brahman. Then creation took place, Srishti. Then there is a period of sthiti. Then there is laya, dissolution. So Shankaracharya says, whatever was said, all living beings are in me, that applies to the period called sthiti. Na sarge atava na sargat purvam na laye atava layat paschat. Layat paschat bhutani na santi srashtehe purvam bhutani na vartante. Therefore, this shloka says, it brings to us within the adhyaropa, within the frame of reference of deliberate superimposition, which is eventually to be negated. Adhyaropa apavadabhyam nishprapancham prapanchate. Shankaracharya is going to say that quote from somewhere in his commentary on the 13th chapter. Sarva bhutani kaunteya prakritim yanti mamikam kalpakshye punastani kalpadau visrajamyaham. This first sentence ends with the word kalpakshaye of the second half. Sarvabhutani kaunteya prakritim yanti mamikam kalpakshaye. Put a comma. Kalpakshaye, when a certain kalpa, a kalpa consisting of 4 yugas, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Together they are called one kalpa. When that kalpa ends, there is a pralaya. What happens to all living beings when that grand dissolution takes place? Well, all of them merge into their source. Sri Krishna says, my source, that is mama prakriti, mamikam prakriti. Mama leads to mamaka or mamika. Bhagavad Geetā starts with that shloka, right? Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yutsavaha mamakaha pandavaschaiva. So there Dhritarashtra could have as well used the word mamikaha. Mamikaha pandavaschaiva. So sometimes there are two or three forms of the adjective formation. Mamakaha or Mamikaha. Here, Prakritim Yanti Mamikam. The feminine is in the ka or ka. This Mami, me. That is an internal thing. Mamikam Prakritim. They go into my own nature, my own being. They merge in me, in other words. When Kalpakshaye, at the end of one kalpa. Now the next sentence, Punaha Tani Kalpa Adau Visraja. When the next kalpa begins, I release them in space and time. I create space and time and release living beings into this, into the fabric of space and time. So space and time themselves also become invalid. It's because of the limitation of our usual language that we say at the beginning of creation, as though there was time before also. There is an axis of time, and at a certain point T1, creation begins. Actually, before creation, there is no time. Time is, as per the Vedanta philosophy, time is a part of what is created. Time is a part of this phenomenal universe. Space and time are not separable. They are a continuum. That's what Einstein discovered in the last century. Cannot think of time as independent. Don't think of space as independent. Space and time are together. Therefore, if you describe space in the so-called coordinates, x coordinate, y coordinate, z coordinate, x, y, z, x going in one direction, y going 90-degree perpendicular on the same plane, and then z going typically in the vertical direction. And any point in space can be identified as so much of x, so much of y, 90 degrees, and so much of z. Those of you who have studied some maths in some detail know that there are also not only x, y, z, there are another coordinate system, cylindrical coordinates, spherical coordinates. Cylindrical coordinates, any point in the universe, any point in an experimental setup, any point in a setup of reference is described in terms of a radius, in terms of angle, and in terms of vertical. So rather than x, y, and z, it is r, theta, and z. So one of them is not length but angle, theta, because cylinder. And if I remember right, in the so-called spherical coordinates, you have r, from a center you go how much radius, then how much angle vertically, and then how much angle, I guess, uh, on another 90-degree plane. So r, theta, and phi. All this we did to pass exams, then went into the Vedanta philosophy. Then we find Vedanta also goes hand in hand with maths, with physics, with practically all subjects under the sun. So, kalpadav visrajamyam. My point is, in creation, time also is part of creation. I was saying that continuum. So if you take x, y, z, add one more, that is t. Therefore, Einsteinian visualization of universe is x, y, z, t. T is on par with x, y, z. XYZ. It's on par. It's not something independent. That's how he was visualizing all kinds of possibilities, relative motion, and so on. And he discovered many fascinating things. And he stated that nothing can ever travel faster than light. If something were to travel faster than light, then it should be possible for us to go back in time. Go back in time. That is impossible. How can I go from August 14 to August 12? I can go from August 14 to August 16, August of 2025. Move ahead. How can move back? Well, I too cannot elaborate fully, but it's something like in XYZ you can go back or forth. X direction, Y direction, Z direction. Or if you take cylindrical coordinates in the direction of R in terms of theta, in terms of height. The case of spherical coordinates in the direction of R in terms of theta or in terms of phi. We can go back and forth and reduce the angle, increase the angle, reduce the radius, increase the radius. Like that, reduce the time value, reduce the or increase the time value. Go from August 14 to August 12 or from August 14 to August 18. Everything, because they're on par. Just as in higher Vedanta, waking and dream are considered on par. They are equal. For heaven's sake, don't give even an iota of greater importance, greater reality, greater solidity, or less falsity to waking, says the higher Vedanta. But in lower Vedanta, that is preliminary classes, it is said whatever you see in waking state becomes the material samagri for dream. And speakers, pravachanakars, they dramatize it further. They say, well, in your waking state, suppose you had seen a Bharatanatyam and on your way back home you saw a monkey on a tree. Then that night in your dream you might see a monkey performing Bharatanatyam dance. The audience laughs, the speaker is happy, and both audience and speaker think, we today understood what is dream and what is waking. The truth of waking and dream is far subtler than monkeys and Bharatanatyam. It's more serious than monkey business. When you go very deep into what is knowership, who is the knower, who determines what is true and what is false, is that knower the same in waking and in dream? The Jagrat Abhimani, the Swapna Abhimani, is the same Abhimani goes into different states, or is only the light of consciousness one without a second? Light of consciousness, even in higher Vedanta, is the one, is the same. In waking, dream, deep sleep, the same Sakshi Chaitanya is. But certain scholars with great force say, not light of consciousness, but the waker, the waking ego's time, waking ego's space, all of them are bundled up and done away with. In dream, you have a new waking ego, new dream ego. The dream ego, the space of dream ego, the time of dream ego are all separate. Mind blowing. They question thinking of waking, dream, and deep sleep being on one time axis. They say, well, the time of waking is wound up, not available anymore. The time of dream is another projection. This has led to certain debates, and especially some are just unable to understand how it could be so. Some sort of understand, but they are very attached to a certain school of thought to which they subscribed for ages. And now to change the school, to change the outlook is hard. Coming back, this kalpakshaye bhutani ishwarasya prakritim yanti. Kalpadav, at the beginning of the new kalpa, Ishvara, God, releases them as though you have a big closed basket in which there are some pigeons. Take the basket which is nicely, tightly closed. Go to a field, a large cricket field, football field. Go to the center of this field, open that basket and let those pigeons fly into air. Visrajamyaham. Shankaracharya gives a brief commentary. Sarvabhutani kaunteya prakritim trigunatmikam aparam nikrishtam yanti. Seventh chapter had talked about apara prakriti and para prakriti. Bhumirapo nalo vayu kammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakriti rashtada apareyam itasvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam yayedam dharyate jagat. Two verses in seventh chapter talked of the lower apara prakriti, higher para prakriti. Acharya Shankara adds aparam prakriti yanti, because in para prakriti nothing enters, nothing leaves. Para prakriti is pure consciousness, one without a second. But apara prakriti has a great lot happening. So when they asked Nisargadatta, what's the difference between your world and our world? Nisargadatta, with a touch of humor, said, lot of things happen in your world. Nothing happens in my world. Prakriti. Brahmanishtas speak like that, see like that. Mamika madiyam kalpakshaye pralaya kale. पुनः भूयः तानि भूतानि उत्पत्ति काले कल्पाद विसर्जामि उत्पादयामि अहम पूर्ववत्. Earlier also this was talked. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.